Hi there, seniors. Straight into where we stopped before. We are on. I can't reach it. Didn't bring my grabber. I've been using that thing, though. It's been great in the den, which is where I spend most of my time. 33 is Joe's journal, and it has New York and November up at the top. Dear Marmee and Beth, I'm going to write you a regular volume, for I've lots to tell, though I'm not a fine young lady traveling on the continent. When I lost sight of Father's dear old face, I felt a trifle blue, and might have shed a briny drop or two, if an Irish lady with 4 small children, all crying more or less, hadn't diverted my mind, for I amuse myself by dropping gingerbread nuts. Sounds interesting. Over the seat every time they opened their mouths to roar. Soon the sun came out, and taking it as a good omen, I cleared up likewise and enjoyed my journey with all my heart. Mrs. Kirk welcomed me so kindly I felt at home at once, even in that big house full of strangers. Sounds like a boarding house. Or maybe she just has a whole bunch. Well, they wouldn't be. Never mind. She gave me a funny little sky parlor, all she had, but there is a stove in it and a nice table and a sunny window, so I can sit and write whenever I like. A fine view and a church tower opposite atoned for the many stairs, and I took a fancy to my den on the spot. The nursery, where I'm to teach and sew, is a pleasant room next Mrs. Kirk's private parlor, and the two little girls are pretty children, rather spoilt, I guess, but they took to me after telling them the 7 bad pigs. And I've no doubt I shall make a model governess. She's not modest at all. I am to have my meals with the children if I prefer it to the great table, and for the present I do, for I am bashful, though no one will believe it. It's hard to believe that Joe isn't. Now, my dear, make yourself at home, said Mrs. K in her motherly way. I'm on the drive from morning to night, as you may suppose, with such a family, but a great anxiety will be off my mind if I know the children are safe with you. My rooms are always open to you, and your own shall be as comfortable as I can make it. There are some pleasant people in the house. That makes me think it's a type of boarding house. If you feel sociable and your evenings are always free, come to me if anything goes wrong, and be as happy as you can. There's the tea bell. I must run and change my cap. And off she bustled, leaving me to settle myself in my new nest. As I went downstairs soon after, I saw something I liked. The flights are very long in this tall house, flights of stairs. And as I stood waiting at the head of the 3rd one for a little servant girl to lumber up, I saw a queer-looking man come along behind her, take the heavy hod of coal out of her hand, carry it all the way up, put it down at a door nearby, and walk away, saying with a kind nod and a foreign accent, "It goes better so. The little back is too young to have such heaviness," which is what he said. Wasn't it good of him? I like such things, for as Father says, trifles show character. When I mentioned it to Mrs. K that evening, she laughed and said, "That must have been Professor Bauer. He's always doing things of that sort." Mrs. K told me he was from Berlin, very learned and good, but poor as a church mouse, and gives lessons to support himself and 2 little orphan nephews whom he is educating here, according to the wishes of his sister, who married an American. Not a very romantic story, but it interested me, and I was glad to hear that Mrs. K lends him her parlor for some of his scholars. There's a glass door between it and the nursery, and I mean to peep at him, and then I'll tell you how he looks. He's almost 40, so it's no harm, Marmee. And I know she gets with some professor or other in the end, so could this be him? After tea and a go-to-bed romp with the little girls, I attacked the big work basket and had a quiet evening chatting with my new friend. I shall keep a journal letter and send it once a week, so good night and more tomorrow. Tuesday Eve. Had a lively time in my seminary this morning, for the children acted like Sancho. And at one time, I really thought I should shake them all round. Some good angel inspired me to try gymnastics, and I kept it up till they were glad to sit down and keep still. After luncheon, the girl took them out for a walk, and I went to my needlework. Like little Mabel, and with a willing mind, I was thanking my stars that I'd learned to make nice buttonholes. When the parlor door opened and shut, and someone began to hum. And I have no idea. This is it looks like German. Kennst thou das Land. Like a big bumblebee. It was dreadfully improper, I know, but I couldn't resist the temptation, and lifting one end of the curtain before the glass door, I peeped in. Professor Bauer, Bhaer, was there, and while he arranged his books, I took a good look at him. A regular German, rather stout, with brown hair, tumbled all over his head, a bushy beard, droll nose, the kindest eyes I ever saw, and a splendid big voice that does one's ears good. After our sharp or slipshod American gabble, his clothes... Splendid big voice that does one good. Okay, so the slipshod American gabble went with that. His clothes were rusty, his hands were large, and he hadn't a really handsome feature in his face, except his beautiful teeth. Yet I liked him, for he had a fine head, I guess smarts. His linen was spandy nice, and he looked like a gentleman, though two buttons were off his coat, and there was a patch on one shoe. He looked sober in spite of his humming till he went to the window to turn the hyacinth bulbs toward the sun and stroked the cat, who received him like an old friend. Then he smiled when a tap came at the door, called out in a loud, brisk tone, "Herein!" I was just going to run when I caught sight of a morsel of a child carrying a big book and stopped to see what was going on. "Me want my buyer," said the mite, slamming down her book and running to meet him. "Thou shalt have thy buyer. Come in, then, and take a good hug from him, my Tina," said the professor, catching her up with a laugh and holding her high over his head, so high over his head that she had to stoop her little face to kiss him. "Now me must study my lesson," went on the funny little thing, so he put her up at the table, opened a great dictionary she had brought, and gave her a pencil and paper as she scribbled away, turning a leaf now and then and passing her little fat finger down the page as if finding a word so soberly I nearly betrayed myself by a laugh, while Mr. Bauer stood stroking her pretty hair with a fatherly look that made me think she must be his own, though she looked more French than German. Another knock and the appearance of two young ladies sent me back to my work, and there I virtuously remained through all the noise and gabbling that went on next door. One of the girls kept laughing affectedly and saying, "Now, Professor," in a coquettish tone, and the other pronounced her German with an accent that must have made it hard for him to keep sober. Both seemed to try his patience sorely, for more than once I heard him say emphatically, "No, no, it is not so. You have not attended to what I say." And once there was a loud rap as if he struck the table with his book, followed by the despairing exclamation, "Prut! It all goes bad this day." Poor man, I pitied him, and when the girls were gone, took just one more peep to see if he survived it. He seemed to have thrown himself back in his chair, tired out, and sat there with his eyes shut till the clock struck 2, when he jumped up, put his books in his pocket, as if ready for another lesson, and taking little Tina, who had fallen asleep on the sofa, In his arms, he carried her quietly away. I fancy he has a hard life of it. Mrs. Kirk asked me if I wouldn't go down to the 5 o'clock dinner, and feeling a bit homesick, I thought I would, just to see what sort of people are under the same roof with me. So I made myself respectable and tried to slip in behind Mrs. Kirk. But as she is short and I'm tall, my efforts at concealment were rather a failure. She gave me a seat by her, and after my face cooled off, I plucked up courage and looked about me. The long table was full, and everyone intent on getting their dinner. The gentlemen especially, who seemed to be eating on time, for they bolted in every sense of the word, vanishing as soon as they were done. There was the usual assortment of young men, absorbed in themselves, young couples absorbed in each other, married ladies and their babies, and old gentlemen in politics. I don't think I shall care to have too much to do with any of them, except one sweet-faced maiden lady who looks as if she had something in her. Cast away at the very bottom of the table was the professor, shouting answers to the questions, of a very inquisitive dear old gentleman on one side, and talking philosophy with a Frenchman on the other. If Amy had been here, she'd have turned her back on him forever, because, sad to relate, he had a great appetite and shoveled in his dinner in a manner which would have horrified her ladyship. I didn't mind, for I like to see folks eat with a relish, as Hannah says, and the poor man must have needed a deal of food after teaching idiots all day. As I went upstairs after dinner, 2 of the young men were settling their beavers, I guess that's their coats, before the hall mirror, and I heard one say low to the other, "Who's the new party? Governess or something of that sort. What the deuce is she at our table for? Friend of the old lady's. Handsome head, but no style. Not a bit. Give us a light and come on." I felt angry at first, then I didn't care, for a governess is as good as a clerk, and I've got sense if I haven't style, which is more than some people have, judging from the remarks of the elegant beings who clattered away, smoking like bad chimneys. I hate ordinary people. Whew! I think I'm going to read just a little bit more, because like I said, I still have to read to my junior. Okay. This is Thursday. Yesterday was a quiet day spent in teaching, sewing, and writing in my little room, which is very cozy with a light and fire. I picked up a few bit of news and was introduced to the professor. It seems that Tina is the child of the French woman who does the fine ironing and the laundry here. The little thing has lost her heart to Mr. Bower and follows him about the house like a dog whenever he is at home, which delights him, as he is very fond of children, though a bachelor. Kitty and Minnie Kirk likewise regard him with affection and tell all sorts of stories about the plays he invents, the presents he brings, and the splendid tales he tells. The young men quiz him, it seems, call him Old Fritz, Liger Beer, Ursa Major, and make all manner of jokes on his name. But he enjoys it like a boy, Mrs. K says, and takes it so good-naturedly that they all like him in spite of his odd ways. The maiden lady is a Miss Norton, rich, cultivated, and kind. She spoke to me at dinner today, for I went to the table again. It's such fun to watch people, and asked me to come and see her at her room. She has fine books and pictures, knows interesting persons, and seems friendly, so I shall make myself agreeable, for I do want to get into a good society, only it isn't the same sort that Amy likes. And this looks like to be about halfway, so I am going to stop right here. So we will still be in this chapter 33, Joe's Journal. And we'll see you next time. Be sweet and don't be ugly. And I'll be live at 5. Hope I have this up before then. Okay. Bye-bye.